All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College Application and Website Development, or AWD 1100 Programming Fundamentals with C# course, I'm creating a series of video presentations that are based off of the PowerPoint slides for our textbook for the class, Muroc C# 7th edition, as you can see on your screen. Now, I have done everything in Section 1, everything in Section 2, chapters 12, 14, and 16 from Section 3, all of Section 4, and Chapter 19 from Section 5. But rather than going into 20 and 21, I am kind of augmenting that and just changing it around, and I'm going through some database fundamentals with you. Now, I went through a bunch of queries in the last lecture, and I talked about a few things, such as how to do a select statement, how to add a where clause to a select statement, how to use and, all right, and or. And I should have used not in there also, but I guess I did do an example of not also. We did an order by, we did a group by, we talked about the having clause, we did a limit, we did a distinct, we looked at a couple of the built-in functions that you have here. So we're going to talk about a few more things right now. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk about Crud. Now, don't worry, it's going to give me some errors. I don't care. Crud is an acronym that stands for Create, Read, Update, and Delete. These are the major operations that you will do on data in a database. We have already looked at the R in Crud. All right. And what do I mean? Well, I'm going to do this. Guess it doesn't like that. So when you are working in MySQL, instead of create, we're going to be using insert into. And you're going to see examples of that in just a minute. All right. Instead of read, you've already seen the select statement. And what you're also going to see in this series of lectures here is how to use the update statement and how to use the delete statement. All right, so we're going to look at all of these in a minute. So create is going to allow us to go in, or not with create, with insert into, to add additional records. All right. So these commands that you're seeing here, this insert into these commands, the ones that you see right there, and it's really just insert, but insert and select and update and delete, these commands, and I gave you this term before, all right, but those commands are what are called data manipulation language, also known as DML commands. That's what these are. So that's what these particular four things that you see right here are. They are DML commands. What we are also going to talk about in this lecture are what are called data definition language, or DDL commands. All right. And those are going to end up being, let me put my dashes in here again. Those are going to end up being, oh, let's see. Again, we will do some work, I think, with create. But we're mainly going to be talking about alter, and we're going to be talking about drop. All right, I think there'll be some create in here also. So create, alter, and drop. If I can get these ideas across from you, that's the majority of what we want to talk about in this particular lecture. I'm also going to mention a couple additional things. We'll talk a little bit about null. We'll talk a little bit about an operator that's called union. And we'll talk about joins. If I can get this stuff across to you in this lecture, I'm doing my job. All right. So let's take a picture of this. And I'm going to just grab the stuff I need, which is here. So there it is. I'm going to keep that available to make sure I don't miss anything. All right. So with that said, let's come in here and let's remove that. Now, I'm going to suppose that we have a brand new instructor that we just hired. All right, and that instructor, so again, I'm going to remove all this in a second, but let me see if I put this as dash dash. I think it'll take that then. So if I come in here and I'm going to say we're going to hire Maggie Bronson. So that's the first name and that's the last name. And she will be working in AWD where I work. So she will be working in Department 4. So in other words, the first name will be Maggie. The last name will be Bronson. And the department will be number 4, which is application and website development. So we have just hired Maggie Bronson in, and we want to add her to our list of instructors. How do we do that? Well, we're going to come in here and say insert into, and we got to give it the name of the table, instructors. Now, when we have to list the fields, but we don't list the ID field here because that's auto increment. That's going to be added for us automatically. So I'm going to say in here first name, last name, department number. All right. Then I use the word values. So these are the values that I'm going to put in for those. And they're going to be inside of parentheses. So I'm going to put it in just like this, just so you see it. All right. I could literally put it all on one line, but it would kind of fly off the screen if I did that. So the first name is Maggie. The last name is Bronson. And the department number is 4. So what have we done right here? In fact, it might be a little easier here because there's not that many of these. So let's put all this, the values and etc. on one line just so you can see everything. Okay. So this is a typical type of insert. So what are we doing here? Let me hit enter here so you see it. We are using insert into, so we're telling it to insert into this table. And we're saying here, we've got a first name, which is going to be Maggie, a last name, which is going to be Bronson, and a department number, which is going to be 4. So insert into instructors, a first name, a last name, and a department number. We need all these because if you remember earlier, we said none of them could be null. All right. So we've got all this. The values are going to be Maggie for first name, Bronson for last name, 4 for department number. You'll notice that Maggie and Bronson, both of those are inside of single quotes because they are string values or varchars. This is an integer, so we don't put it inside. Now, if this works, we're just going to get a message back that says 1 added, and if it doesn't work, you're going to know right away. All right, 1 row inserted. So now if I come in here and I say select star from instructors, Maggie Bronson should be added. And you'll notice she's in there as the new instructor. All right, we're going to work with Maggie as we get in here. All right, let's do a similar thing. Let's add a new department. All right, so I'm going to come over here into my SQL window, and Now I want to work with not this table, but I want to work with the departments table. And if you remember with the departments table, there's only two fields in there, the ID and the department name. And when we do this, again, since the ID is an auto increment, we don't add it. So I'm going to say insert into departments, all right, and values. Oops, I got to give it the value. So that is department name. All right, then values, and I don't know what's something I can think of in here. Let's suppose in here that we're going to have a new department. I don't know. Trying to see if I missed anything in here earlier. So Rankin Technical College programs. Carpentry. There we go. That's a good one. So we want to add a carpentry program. All right, and let's do that. So this will be carpentry. You'll notice it's much simpler because we only have one field that we have to account for. So now we should have, and we had 10 departments, so this should become number 11. All right, so I go and click go. It says one was inserted. So if I come back again and I select star from departments, it should show me now 11. And carpentry should be the last one that's in there. That's good. All right. Right now that's working exactly the way we want it to. All right. So let's select our star from again, but let's do instructors. So we've got our, whatever, we got 15 or so instructors, something like that. All right. And we've got all those instructors. Now notice it says 0 to 14, 15 total. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way down. And now we found out that Maggie Bronson always, she's a carpenter. Even though she was hired into IT, her first love is carpentry. So what we want to do is we want to change her department. We want to change her department number from 4, application and website development, to 11, which is carpentry. So let's do that. And I'm going to mention a few things about this. So it's going to be update. And what do we want to update? The table, the instructors table. And what do we want to do? We want to set the department number equal to 11. Now, if we do this, I'm not going to. If I run this query now, it'll set the department number for every single employee to 11. So when you run an update, and in just a minute, you're going to see the delete. So when you run an update or a delete, virtually 100% of the time, when you do that, you're going to have a where clause in here. So I can say where, and I'm doing a little overkill here, but I'm doing it on purpose, where first name equals Maggie and last name equal Bronson. Now this should work, and it should work just fine. All right. The only problem is if, I'll give you a very quick story, and I'll try to keep it real simple. All right. When I started at Rankin Technical College 6+ years ago, I noticed that I got a lot of mail that didn't seem to pertain to me. I would get catalogs and stuff and books, and it was like, this is like machine type of stuff. I don't teach this. And I found out that not only was there a Jeffrey P. Scott, who's me, there was a Jeffrey R. Scott that already worked at the St. Louis campus. All right. So what I'm telling you is, if that was the case here, and I said where first name equals Jeff and last name equals Scott, all right, then that would have actually changed. That would have actually changed both Jeff Scotts in this case. So now this will work. And I want to show you that it works, but then I want to show you a better way of doing it. So I'm going to grab all of this right now and just copy it to the clipboard. This should work though. And it says one row affected. So if I go back again and I say select star from instructors, now what I should notice is with Maggie Bronson at the end, her department has changed to 11. So it was updated. That's exactly what I'd want to have happen. All right. Let's pretend here that, oh, you know what? It wasn't Maggie Bronson. It was Phil Hansen. I want you to look at the ID field here. Notice they're all unique, and that Phil Hansen is 27 and Maggie Bronson is 28. All right. Why am I telling you that? Because what we really should have done here is, instead of running that, we should have said where ID equals 28. That should always only affect, if there's an ID of 28, only one employee. All right, so I'm going to set this back to 4, doing it like this. So I'm going to say set department number equal to 4, where ID equal 28. After I run this query, and I'm going to keep it, then Maggie Bronson should be set back where she is working again. All right, she should be set back again where she is working in application and website development, and she is. Now, we'll just grab somebody else here. We'll just, like I said, we'll grab Phil Hansen. All right, and before we do, right now, if you'll notice in here, we don't have anybody in Department 11. All right, so where we did this before, let's try writing a query that I think didn't work before, but I'm going to say select department number count star from departments, group by count star. Now I thought this didn't work when I tried running it before. Of course it doesn't work. What doesn't it like? Unknown column department number in field list. Oh, because that's department name. So I'm doing the wrong one here. This should be instructors. All right. So let's see if that works. Still doesn't. Invalid use of group function. It's the same error I got before. Select department number. Group by. Whew. So let's select this. I'm not going to do a count star. I'm going to do a count of department number. I thought that still didn't work, but no, it doesn't like it. I don't remember what I'm doing wrong there. So let's look at W3 schools group by function. I'm going off topic a little bit, not on purpose, but I just wanted to show you a few things. Select column names from table where condition, group by, select count. Maybe it's something as simple as this. I don't know. Group it by department number. Okay, let's see if that works. What do you know? All right, so these are all the number of people who work in each department, but you'll notice that in here right now, there's nobody who works in department 11. All right, so there's no one right now who works in department 11. Okay, why am I telling you that? Because if I come back in here and I run this same query, all right, and I'm going to say having don't know if this is going to work or not. Didn't give me any. Let's see. Whoops. It doesn't like what I'm trying to do here, so that's fine. All right. But I wanted to show you a having here, and it's not finding anything that's meeting my criteria. All right. All right. I'm going to try doing something else here because I want to get, just for a second, talk to you about null. Null means unknown. Some books will tell you null means nothing. I don't agree with that. All right. But I'm going to say here, I don't know if that'll work. It doesn't like that. Legal use of group function. And if this doesn't work, that's fine. Okay. What I am trying to tell you, though, is if you are a brand new student at Rankin Technical College, you walk in the first day, and I don't know that you're a brand new student. So your name is Mike King. So come in, and you come in early, and you walk up and introduce yourself to me, and you say, "Hi, I'm Mike King," and I shake hands with you or whatever, and I say, "Hi, my name's Jeff Scott." And we get to talking about things. And I get the feeling from talking to you that you have been a student at Rankin for a while and that you seem to be really, really intelligent. And you start talking to me about grade point averages. And I say to you, "What's your grade point average?" And you look at me kind of funny. I wouldn't normally ask that to a student anyway, but let's just say that I did because it's not my business. But you look at me funny and I haven't taken any classes here yet. So you don't have a grade point average. It's not that your grade point average is 0.00 because that would say you failed. That would say you've taken classes and you failed. You don't have a value for a GPA yet. So I would say for that reason, your grade point average would be null. So null means unknown. All right. So let's go through here. I'm going to select star from instructors. There's a reason I'm doing this. So let's go ahead and do this. And you will notice that we'll pick on him. He's the new guy. We'll pick on Mr. Anderson here. All right. So I'm going to update. And let me run it one more time. His ID is 17. So again, I want to run through this and show you the quote wrong way, unquote, of doing this and the quote right way of doing this. So I'm going to say update instructors, set department number equal to 11. Now the wrong way of doing this again would have been saying where first name equals Thomas, this is case insensitive, and last name equals Anderson. Now that will work. But again, if we have the case where we've got multiple people with this first name and that last name, it's going to change all of them. So even though that will work, a better way of doing that would be to say where ID is equal to 17. And that's why I looked first to see his ID. Now this should work with no problem. But the syntax for this is update followed by the table name, set followed by this. we can set multiple things. So let's assume for a second that, and I'm just lining this up just so you can see what's what. Let's assume that his first name is not Thomas, it's just Tom. First name equal Tom. So that should have changed both of these. Should have changed Tom's department number to 11 and Tom's first name from Thomas to Tom. All right, so you just put a comma separated list in there. So again, let's just assume that his last name, it's not, but let's just assume that his last name was not Anderson, but Andrews. So I could say equals Andrews. Like that. So now I've changed 3 fields. All right, so I run this. It says that 1 query affected. That means it worked. So I come back and select star again from here. And now you'll notice it's Tom Andrews, not Thomas Anderson. And the department number has changed from 4 to 11. So I have now shown you, all right, I have now come in here and shown you both. We've looked at select. We've done several things with the select statement. But going back to that picture I made for you before, we have now talked about insert. We have now talked about select. We have now talked about update. So let's talk very quickly here about delete. All right. So we're going to assume, let's take a look at the people that we have working here. We'll pick on him. It's not anything personal. Let's see if let's add a new employee that we will put into department 9, and then we'll remove them. So let's insert. Let's do an insert into. So insert into instructors. And remember, instructors has an ID, which we do not have to put in because it's auto increment. A first name, we'll say Brian. A last name, we'll say, I don't know, Kendricks. All right, and a department number, which I'm just, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to say 9. Okay, so insert that, and this is wrong. We need to say the name. So first name, last name, and department number. All right, then we say values, and inside of parens, we put this. So again, Brian will be the first name, Kendricks will be the last name, 9 will be the department number. Insert into table name, then a parenthesized list of all the non-auto increment fields, and then values. All right. Now I'm going to actually come in and I'm going to add this twice. Okay. So I'm going to add that. There's a new instructor. So if I come back again and select star from instructors, and I run this, we should have a new employee down at the bottom. And there it is. All right. So I want to go back. I'm going to make an error in here on purpose. All right. So I'm going to add somebody, and Brian's brother, Marcus Kendricks, also is going to come to work here. But I'm not going to put in that. I'm purposely not putting in a department number. We should get an error here. And it says column count doesn't match value count. Well, that's exactly what it is. Our column count is 3, and our value count is 2. So what if we just say, well, we don't know what department they're working in, so we'll just do that. All right. What happens then? It says that it worked, but notice what it did here. Okay. So I wasn't sure if it would work or not. So let's come in here and we'll select star from instructors. And notice now it put in a 0 for the department number. It put a default value in there. All right. Well, we don't want that. So let's say that, like Brian, Marcus is also going to work in department 9. And now we don't want to say we're last name equal Kendricks, because it would affect both of them, even though what we're doing wouldn't really hurt there. But we want an ID of 30. So let's go in here And let's update instructors. And we are going to set department number equal to 9 where ID is equal to 30. Update that table, set that particular field equal to that particular value based on the ID. This should work with no problem. It did. And when I come back here now and select star from instructors and run it, what I should notice now is Marcus Kendricks now works for Department 9. All right. Before Marcus even had a chance to work here, he decided he didn't want to work here. All right. So we're going to delete him from our table. Now, again, like with update, what you don't want to do here is you don't want to say delete from instructors. You could say that. That removes every record from the table. And you are not asked first if that's what you want to do. You're not told, basically that doesn't come in there and say, hey, do you want to do that? It just removes them. It thinks that's what you want. All right. And almost always, that won't be what you want. So again, virtually 100% of the time, you'll want to come in here and put in a where clause. So where ID is equal to 30. That was Marcus Kendricks' ID. So you don't have to put anything else in there. All it needs is the ID. I could have said, again, where first name equal Marcus and last name equal Kendrick, but if we had more than one Marcus Kendrick, it would have removed all of them. So I check for the ID first. You'll notice it says, do you really want to do this? It does ask here. Yeah, okay, I do. All right, and it says it did it. So let's come back in here again and look at our instructors. And now the last one should not be Marcus Kendrick because he's been removed. All right, so what I've shown you so far in here is we've gone through and I showed you the insert with the insert into. I showed you the update and I showed you the delete. We also talked about nulls and we talked about, in fact, let's do this. Let's make a brand new table. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and how are we going to do this? First, let's alter this table. All right, we're going to alter this table, and we're going to add a new field. All right, I'm just doing this stuff off the top of my head. Okay, so I want to add a new field in here, and I want the new field to be H. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, what I want to do is I want to alter the table. Right now, the table looks like this. It's got, whoops, the other table. Yeah, it's got an ID, a first name, a last name, and a department number. But I want to add an age, which will be an integer. All right. So I'm going to come in here, and I don't remember how to do that. So I'm going to go look in here, and I'm going to try to find alter table. There's an alter table. Here's how you can add a column. So I'm going to come in here, sorry about that, and I'm going to put in alter table instructors, add age, and it will be an int. Okay, so click go, says it worked. Now let's look at the structure of our table, and you'll notice there's a new field in here. But notice if we come in here and we select star, these are all null. There are no values. There are no values in here right now for these ages. All right. Now we could go and do one mass update statement, but I'm just going to do one update in here. All right. So I'm 18 right there. That's my ID right there. Okay, 18 there. So I'm going to come into here, and I'm going to say update instructors, add, update set age equal to 65, where ID is equal to 18. All right, I'm going to run this. It worked. I'm going to go into my SQL and I'm going to do my select star again. Now what you'll notice is I'm the only one in here that has an age. And the idea though is I just showed you an altered table statement that allowed us to add a field. Now imagine we had several hundred instructors and we want to put this in. The bottom line is this. Even though you can go and add a field at any time, we could also drop a field at any time. All right, we could do that as well. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. If you're going to add a field, you should try to add it before you put any data in and not after. So I'm going to come in here and let's see if I remember it myself. I'm going to say alter table instructors, drop, I don't know if it's field or not, field, this may not work, but if it doesn't, we'll find out why right away. Drop field age. It says, are you sure you want to get rid of it? Yes. It says you have an error. All right, so let's go back and look in here. So there's drop column, column name. That's what I did. Alter table, drop column, age. Okay, now, I think I know what the problem might be, but we're going to look at it in just a minute. Let's go back into here. It's drop column, not drop field. I think that's what the error is. Drop column, age. Are you sure? Yes, it worked. Now it says it returned an empty set because there's basically it removed it. So that's not, when it gets green usually means good. It means it worked. But let's look in here and let's select star from instructors again. And you'll notice there is no longer an age. So I showed you an alter table where you can both add a field, all right, and you can go in and you can delete a field. You can also modify a field too. All right. So I'm going to make a junk table real quick. What do I mean? I want to just show you. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say create table, and I'm going to call it what it is, garbage. All right. And I'm going to basically say what I want in this table. It's going to have 4 fields. All right. It'll have an ID, which will be an int of size 11. It will be an auto increment, and it will be a primary key. We'll have height, which will also be an int. We'll make it 11, which is way too big, but it's fine. We'll have weight, all right, which will be, again, 11. And we will have what? We've got an ID, a height, and a weight. We want one more field in here. Nickname. And it'll be a varchar of 50. Okay? All right. So I'm trying to create a brand new table. This is its name. These are the fields it has. Collectively, what I'm doing in here right now is I'm creating what's referred to as the schema for a new table. All right, so this is how I can create a table. So let's see if that worked. Okay. Let's look, and if we look in here, if I refresh and I go down to my rank and table, I now have garbage right there, and there it is. I can look at the structure, and there it is. So I can, if I want to, I can go in and start adding values into it. What do I mean? Well, let's look at some of the stuff we just did. So I can say insert into garbage, and I'll need to put in a height and a weight and a nickname. I mean, this is a contrived example, but hopefully you understand what I'm doing. So the height will be 72, the weight will be 200, the nickname will be Scotty. All right. So I put all that in. Looks like it worked. So let's select star from garbage. And there it is. ID, height, weight, and nickname. All right. So why am I showing you this? Because I'm going to add a couple more records in here quickly. And I want to see if this is going to work, what I'm about to show you. So I'm going to say insert. I'm going to try to insert multiple records into here. Insert into garbage. Again, a height, a weight, and a nickname. All right, and values. Now I'm going to make several of these. So I'm going to put in here 55, 111, Betty Boo. I'm just making this up. And then I'm going to try to put in another one. 66, 166, Tommy gun. And let's put in a couple more. Okay. 77, 188, good guy. We can have blank spaces in here too. That's totally fine. And finally, we'll put in one more. It'll be 66, 133, and we'll call it good gal. All right, let's see if this works. I'm attempting to insert into garbage 4 different records. Each is in its own set of parentheses. Each one has a comma at the end except for the last one. So let's see if this works. And it looks like it did. So now let's select star from garbage, and we should have 5 records in here. There they are. Okay. Now I want to show you the difference between doing a delete and doing a drop right here. I want to show you the difference between those two. All right. Okay. If I come in here now and I say this, if I come in here and say delete from garbage, nothing else, what does this do? It says, are you sure you want to execute that? Yes. Now if I come in here and I say select star from garbage, there's nothing in there because delete removed every record because I didn't put any criteria in there with a where statement. Now, the difference between delete and drop is delete keeps the schema. It's still there. The table is still there. So if I go to structure, there it is. There are no records in it, but it's still there. On the other hand, if I say drop, I have to tell it what I want to drop. I want to drop a table. What table? The table called garbage. Now you'll notice when we look here into here, there's garbage. When we execute this command, you really want to drop it? Yes. And I refresh and I look in here, garbage is gone. So when you do a delete statement on a table and you don't give it any criteria, it deletes all the records from the table, but it keeps the schema of the table, the structure of the table. When you do a drop table, it removes not only the records, but the schema as well. All right. Now, just so you know, with what we've been working with so far in here, so if I come up and I look in here at departments, says, yeah, I want to save. Okay, so in departments, what did we have in here? The structure of the department table, an ID, which was our primary key, and a department name. All right, and we had another table that was called instructors, and that had an ID, a first name, a last name, and a department number. Not all the time, but pretty much all the time, when you create a new table, you always should give it a primary key. And almost always, that primary key should be called ID, and it should be an integer. What you're doing then is you're making that ID, or that primary key, and I've used this term with you before, you are making that what is called unintelligible. So if somebody comes in and finds out that my ID is 18, that really doesn't mean much. There's not much they can do with that because that field is unintelligible. All right. A couple more things to talk about. Some of these I've shown you before, but I wanted to show them to you again. So somebody comes in, my boss comes in and says, hey, I need a listing of all the employees in all the departments they work for. And I'm like, hey, I'm on it. So I come in here and I do this. And the boss says, no. This isn't what I want. I don't need these IDs. And I don't want their department number. I want their department name. Well, I can't get the name from here, but if I combine the information from this table with the information from this table, all right, so notice this has an ID right there. That's its primary key. And this one has a department number, which is basically the same field. So I can come in here and do what's called a join on these tables. And I want to show you the old school way of doing the join, then the new school way of doing the join. All right. Also, I'm going to come in here and do what's called fully qualify my tables. I am going to fully qualify my tables. So I'm going to say select, try this again. Select, and from the instructors table, dot, I want the first name. From the instructors table, I want the last name. And from the departments table, I want the department name. So I want those three things. And I want to say from instructors, departments. Now, this isn't going to work the way you think it will. What I'm doing here is I'm going to get back tons of records. All right, probably what, 15 times, probably 150 records, if I counted right, or more. Notice it's giving me every combination: Charles Corrigan Gen Ed, Charles Corrigan Electrical, Charles Corrigan Information, etc. Then Brock Parsons, then Chad Grohearing. What I just did was not what I wanted to do. What I just did was what's called a Cartesian product join. And that means I didn't give it any criteria. So the old-fashioned way of doing this is to say where instructors dot department number is equal to departments dot ID. All right, let's save this so we've got it. And now let's look and see if this is what our boss wanted. So there's the names, first name, last name, and department that they work for. Now we could go back and pretty this up in that we could go back here and say, all right, I want this, and I want you to do an order by, an order by departments dot department name, and then by instructors dot last name, and if there's still any ties, by instructors dot first name. Okay. And run this. And that's looking pretty good. So we've got our A's here, and these are in order. We've got our I's here, and these are in order. All right. Well, that's pretty good. So what did I just do? I just did what's called an equijoint. Why equijoint? Because I had an equal sign here. I told it to go out to this table and grab this field. I told it to go out to this table and grab this field. And I told it to go out to this table and grab this field. But I said, because since I'm using two different tables here, I had to list them both. But when I did it the first time and I didn't put a where statement in there, it did every combination. And since there were about 18 instructors and 10 or 11 different departments, 18 times 11 is 198. It gave me every permutation there was. But I can also do, on here, I can create what are called aliases. So I'm going to put an I here and I'm going to put a D there. So rather than having to type all this stuff, you can see I'm making this a lot easier to read. All right. Now this is the old school way of doing this. Back in the late 1980s and around 1990, when I learned how to do this stuff, yeah, it's 30 some years ago. But when I learned how to do this stuff, this is how we did it, was like this. All right, I should get the same exact results I got before. And you'll notice I do. All right. So there is another way that you can write this same stuff, and it's more recommended. So I'm going to leave the old one up here so you can see it, and I'll remove it in just a minute, okay? But I'm going to copy it in again. And now I'm going to say, don't worry about that error. So I still want to select this, but I want to say from this, now I want to say inner join departments D. Okay, so there, the error is gone. I should get the same results, so let me come back. Let me copy this, run it, and then see if I do get the same results. And you can see that I do. So what's the big deal? Can we use the old way? Is the new way a lot better, etc.? And the answer is it depends. It depends on what you think. All right. So when we had the other one in here, the one that looked like that was the difference. This supposedly, and I've read this in articles and stuff, works faster internally than this does. That's the old school way of doing it, what's highlighted now, the way I learned. So it's recommended that you do it this way. All right. There are other types of joins that you can do rather than an inner join. There's a left join, there's a right join, there's an outer join, there's even a self join. I don't want to get into those right now because I think I've given you enough stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm done with this lesson, but in the next lesson I'm going to come back and I'm going to go in and I'm going to use this MMA books that we created before. This is the one from the book. Okay? Remember, we have 696 customers. We have 59 invoice line items. We have 40 invoices. We have 16 products, and we have 53 states, which again include Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia. I'm going to use those, and I'm going to fairly quickly, I'm going to write myself a little worksheet where I'm going to ask about 20 questions, 20, whatever, 10, 15, 20, 25 questions. Then I'm going to answer them on here by writing the queries. So you can see this where we've got a lot more data. All right, so I'll come back and do that shortly.